The Varethi Empire had always looked at humans with a mix of curiosity and quiet doubt. They saw humans as a young species, fast-growing but lacking refinement, strong emotion without control, promise without proof. The Varethi lived for centuries, planned their cities like living art pieces, and shaped star systems with patient precision. Humans, on the other hand, rushed into everything: diplomacy, exploration, and even war. Yet somehow they kept rising, kept surviving, kept pushing forward like nothing in the universe could hold them still. Queen Sarilith knew this better than anyone. For months, she had watched the human coalition expand its influence. Their fleets were not the strongest, but their commanders were clever. Their colonies were not the richest, but their unity made them stable. If the Varethi and the humans kept competing, they would eventually fall into open conflict. Every advisor warned her that it was only a matter of time before one mistake or one misunderstanding turned into a war that neither side could afford. So the queen made a decision that shocked both empires. She agreed to a political marriage, an ancient Varethi tradition used only when peace must be guaranteed between two powers. Many Varethi nobles were furious. To them, humans were too unpredictable. Some even whispered that the queen had humiliated the empire by choosing a spouse from a species barely 300 years into space travel. But Sarilith ignored the whispers. She believed peace was worth any personal sacrifice, even if that meant marrying someone she had never met. The human chosen for this marriage was Commander Elias Ward, a man known across human space for negotiation, strategy, and calm thinking under pressure. In every report Sarilith read, he seemed like the perfect candidate. Respectful, intelligent, and trained for diplomacy. His face, shown in the data files, was ordinary to Varethi eyes. Humans always looked softer than Varethi, with rounder features and smaller frames. Sarilith imagined a polite diplomat who would stay quiet in meetings and smile through ceremonies. She had no idea that humans were rarely what they seemed. The day Elias arrived at the Varethi capital, thousands gathered to watch. The air shimmered with the glow of floating banners. Wide towers curved toward the sky like silver trees. The queen stood at the edge of the landing platform, dressed in ceremonial armor that symbolized unity. She kept her expression calm, though her heart beat faster than she liked to admit. Political marriages were not unusual in history, but marrying a human was something no Varethi monarch had ever done. The human shuttle touched down. The doors opened, and Elias Ward stepped out. The queen's first thought was that he looked too relaxed for such a historic day. Humans were shorter than Varethi, but Elias stood confidently. He moved with an easy balance, as if the planet's heavy gravity barely affected him. His eyes scanned the area not with fear, but with precise attention, as if he was gathering information without even thinking about it. He bowed respectfully to the queen, then approached her with a calm smile. "It is an honor, Your Majesty," Elias said. His voice was steady, neither loud nor timid. Sarilith studied him closely. She had expected stiffness, maybe nerves. Instead, he seemed completely prepared. She returned the greeting, and they moved through the formal ceremony together. The marriage pact was sealed, and the peace between their peoples became official. Yet even during the ceremony, the queen noticed small things that unsettled her. Humans usually struggled on Varethi worlds. The gravity alone made most visitors tired after a few hours, but Elias walked as if he had trained for it. And when he stood beside her, she saw how focused he was. Most diplomats looked at the crowd or the cameras. Elias looked at the guards, the exits, the shadows where someone might hide. It was subtle, but Sarilith had ruled long enough to sense when someone had a soldier's mind, rather than a diplomat's. That night, a grand welcoming banquet took place in the palace. Light sculptures floated above the hall, shifting into gentle shapes representing unity between species. Varethi nobles filled the room with polite smiles and quiet gossip. Many stared at Elias with curiosity, some with doubt, a few with open disapproval. Elias noticed every stare but did not react. He simply remained calm, answering questions with clear, simple words. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, he sounded genuinely interested in Varethi culture. That made some nobles soften toward him. Still, whispers followed him everywhere. He looks fragile. He seems harmless. Is this really the man who represents humanity? Serelith heard every cruel comment, though she pretended not to. Elias heard them too. His expression never changed, but the queen saw a flash in his eyes, annoyed amusement, not insult. It made her uneasy. Why would a human diplomat react like that? Did he hide more confidence than he showed? As the evening continued, she found herself watching Elias more than she expected. Not because she doubted him, but because he confused her. When another ambassador asked him about human history, Elias answered with simple honesty rather than formal phrasing. When a noble tested him with a trick question about Varithi politics, Elias responded with thoughtful neutrality instead of falling into their trap. He was careful, patient, but not timid. That alone made him stand out. Halfway through the banquet, the lights dimmed for a traditional performance. Dancers moved across the hall, their armor glowing like drifting stars. Everyone watched except Elias. He leaned slightly forward, eyes focused on something behind the performance area. Serelith saw his posture shift. It was almost invisible, but she had been trained since childhood to read body language. Something had caught his attention. Before she could ask what was wrong, the moment arrived. A flash of silver shot through the air, a small projectile, nearly silent. None of the nobles saw it. Even the guards reacted too slowly. But Elias moved instantly. He stepped in front of the queen without hesitation, pulling her gently but firmly out of the projectile's path. His other hand reached out, catching the attacker's wrist before the weapon could be thrown again. The entire room froze. The Varithi guards finally rushed forward, disarming the would-be attacker. Nobles gasped, shocked at how swiftly it had happened. But the real surprise was Elias, a human smaller, theoretically weaker, had reacted faster than any Varithi warrior in the hall. Serelith stared at him, stunned. Elias released the attacker to the guards and stepped back, his breathing steady, his expression calm. "Are you unharmed, Your Majesty?" he asked. "Yes," she replied softly, though her heart was racing. She was not frightened. She was simply trying to understand what she had just witnessed. Humans were supposed to be clumsy in Varithi gravity. They were supposed to be slower than Varithi reflexes. They were supposed to be at a disadvantage. Yet Elias had moved with effortless speed, speed that should not have been possible for a human. For the rest of the evening, nobles whispered even louder than before, but now their whispering had changed tone. "Did you see that? How did a human do that? Is he trained for combat?" The queen did not answer any questions. Instead, she requested privacy and returned to her private chambers. Elias walked with her, giving her a respectful distance. When they were alone, she finally spoke. "You said you were a strategist and diplomat," she said slowly. "You did not mention advanced combat training." Elias looked slightly embarrassed, but not guilty. "It is common for human officers to train in multiple fields," he explained. "We learn diplomacy, but we also learn self-defense. It is normal for us." "It is not normal for us," she replied. "Your speed was not normal for anyone." "The very deluge." He hesitated, then answered carefully. "Humans are adaptable, Your Majesty. We grow stronger under pressure. When we find ourselves in difficult environments, we learn quickly." His answer was simple, but the queen felt there was more he was not saying. Not because he wanted to deceive her, but because humans sometimes hid their strength without realizing it. She had read hundreds of reports about humanity, yet none of them prepared her for what she saw that night. Elias was not just observant. He was not just physically capable. He had a presence, a quiet intensity that she had not expected. It was as if he had spent his entire life preparing for moments like this, moments where action mattered more than words. As she looked at him, she realized something important. She had married him for peace, expecting a mild man who would stand quietly beside her, a symbol of unity. But humans were never just symbols. She began to wonder if she had misunderstood the entire species. Maybe humans were not weaker. Maybe they were not slower. Maybe they were something else entirely, something unpredictable, something powerful, something the Varithi had never truly recognized. That night, long after Elias retired to his quarters, Queen Seralith stood at her balcony and watched the stars. The marriage had been meant to prevent war, but now, she sensed that her new husband might change far more than peace treaties and political boundaries. He might change her understanding of strength itself. The days following the banquet changed the atmosphere of the entire Varethi capital. The failed attempt to disrupt the marriage caused concern, but what the nobles talked about even more was Elias Ward. Many had expected the human to be polite, quiet, and physically limited. Instead, he had shown awareness sharper than any guard in the room. He had moved with a natural confidence that unsettled anyone who believed humans were predictable. Queen Seralith found herself thinking about him often. She was not confused by fear or mistrust. Those feelings did not suit her. Instead, she felt curiosity tugging at her mind. Every time she saw Elias walking through the palace with calm, steady steps despite the heavy gravity, she wondered what else she did not yet understand about humans. But her curiosity soon had to make space for far larger concerns. The Varethi Empire had received reports for weeks about strange disturbances on their outer borders. Transport ships had gone missing without distress signals. Communication stations had shut down in perfect silence, leaving no sign of trouble. Surveillance drones returned damaged, their recordings scrambled. The council hoped these incidents were natural phenomena or sensor errors, but deep down, Seralith knew something else was happening. One morning, she called an emergency meeting with her council. Elias was invited to observe, though some nobles clearly disliked his presence. The queen insisted anyway. As the symbolic link between the two empires, Elias had the right to understand the situation. The meeting room was shaped like a curved dome, with holographic stars projected above them. As soon as the council gathered, the queen revealed the newest report received only hours earlier. Another Varethi colony had gone silent. No signs of attack, no distress call, no communication. Elias listened quietly as the council debated. "It must be a malfunction," one noble said. "Or an internal rebellion," another suggested. "Perhaps an unknown natural disaster," a third added, though with little confidence. But Elias shook his head gently. "In human space," he said, "we have seen similar patterns. They do not point toward nature or rebellion. They point toward someone trying very hard not to be noticed." Several nobles frowned. One asked with an annoyed tone, "Are you saying someone is doing this on purpose? Without leaving a trace?" "That is what it looks like," Elias replied calmly. Queen Seralith studied him. His voice held no fear, only careful analysis. She opened a projection in the center of the room, showing a map of the galaxy. The silent colonies formed a curved pattern, almost like someone was drawing a path across the stars. "This is too organized," the queen said softly. "Too controlled." Elias nodded. "The human coalition noticed similar activity on our borders. We thought the incidents were minor at first, but they increased in frequency." A long silence followed. Finally, the queen spoke again. "Then this threat is not only targeting us, it is targeting both our empires." Her council exchanged worried glances. Unspoken fear filled the room. Any danger that could silence entire colonies without conflict or warning was not one they were prepared for. As the council argued about possible responses, Seralith noticed Elias once again observing the holographic map, but with a deeper focus than anyone else. She walked toward him quietly. "You seem troubled," she said softly. "I am thinking," he replied. "These incidents happen in patterns. Someone is studying both our empires. Someone who wants us to stay unaware for as long as possible." "You speak as if you already know who it is." Elias paused for a moment. "Humans have theories. Only theories for now. But we believe this might be the work of a machine-based civilization that expands silently, without diplomacy or warning." Seralith felt a chill not from fear, but from the weight of possibility. Machine civilizations were not new to the galaxy, but those that refused communication and operated in secrecy were rare and dangerous. Before she could ask more, another report arrived, this time from a human envoy. The human coalition confirmed that their own border stations had gone silent in the same unexplained way. The queen dismissed the council for the day so she could think. But instead of returning to her personal chambers, she walked to the observation balcony, where the stars stretched endlessly across the sky. A moment later, she heard quiet footsteps behind her. Without turning, she already knew who it was. "You did not tell the full truth in the meeting," she said softly. Elias stood beside her, hands relaxed at his sides. "No," he admitted. "I did not want to create panic. What truth are you worried to share?" He looked out at the stars, his eyes steady, thoughtful. "Human intelligence believes the silent colonies are the work of the Axiarch horde. They are not a natural force. They are not pirates. They are not interested in peace. They grow by absorbing technology and neutralizing threats without drawing attention. If they are moving now, then both our empires are in danger." Seralith watched him quietly. He did not sound frightened, only honest and deeply focused. Even without mentioning conflict or destruction, she could feel the seriousness in his tone. The threat he described was silent, patient, and calculating, more terrifying than any open enemy. "Why did you not say this to the council?" she asked gently. Elias inhaled slowly. "Because the moment a name is given to a threat, it becomes real. And once fear becomes real, people make desperate decisions. That is the last thing either of our empires needs." The queen understood. She appreciated the sensitivity with which he approached the situation. Her council would have reacted with shock and uncertainty. Their fear might have pushed them to take aggressive action, which could lead to misunderstanding or chaos. Elias, however, had chosen calm foresight. She studied him again, seeing him with new clarity. She had thought he was simply a diplomat, but his mind was shaped for complex situations. He saw patterns quickly. He made decisions carefully. Most importantly, he understood the emotional reactions of others, a rare skill even among her own kind. The next morning, the queen called a private strategy meeting and invited only those she trusted, including Elias. Together, they studied the border patterns from both empires. The silent colonies created a curved line that seemed to converge toward a set of star systems between Verethi and human space. "If the pattern continues," Elias said, pointing at the center of the curve, "this system is likely their next target." Queen Seralith nodded. "Then, we must monitor it." They set up surveillance using long-range sensors, probes, and diplomatic observers. But as days passed, the silence remained unbroken. No new colonies went offline, no new signals disappeared, and no trace of the unknown force appeared. The quiet only made the atmosphere heavier. During this time, the queen observed Elias closely. He maintained steady routines, morning discussions with advisors, midday analysis sessions, evening diplomatic meetings, but she could see the tension hidden beneath his calm exterior. He was preparing for something without saying it directly. One afternoon, while reviewing their latest reports, Elias spoke softly. "Your Majesty, may I ask something?" "You may," she replied. "Why did you choose to trust me so quickly? Many of your nobles do not." Seralith smiled lightly. "Trust is not built on time alone. It is built on consistency. You have shown your sincerity again and again." Elias looked slightly surprised. "I'm glad you feel that way." The queen looked at the map again. "Besides, peace cannot survive without trust." Their investigations continued. But with each passing day, the uncertainty thickened. The queen decided it was time to visit the border sector herself to confirm the situation. She announced her decision in the council chamber, and although the nobles argued, she remained firm. "I will not wait for fear to grow," she said. "I will look for the truth myself." Elias requested to accompany her. Some nobles protested, but Seralith allowed him. She knew he would bring insight and calm thinking, and she valued his presence more than she admitted. Their journey to the border was tense but quiet. The silence of the region felt heavy, as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. When they arrived, the queen examined every station, every sensor, every small sign of disturbance. Nothing was wrong, yet everything felt wrong. As they stood together in a monitoring chamber, Elias gently tapped the console. "Your Majesty," he said softly, The silence itself is a message. Whoever is doing this wants us to wait, to grow uncertain, to grow distracted. 71. To grow. To grow. To grow uncertain. To grow uncertain. The Queen nodded slowly. A quiet threat is often the most dangerous. He looked at her with the same steady calm she had come to recognize. But we will face it. Both our peoples will. Sarilith did not speak for a moment. But she felt a new understanding settle inside her. Elias had come to her empire as a symbol of peace. She had expected a gentle man with soft words. Instead, he turned out to be a source of stability during growing tension, a mind capable of seeing danger without fear, and a presence that made uncertainty feel less overwhelming. Their journey back to the capital was reflective. The Queen felt the weight of responsibility more heavily than ever, but she also felt a strange comfort, knowing Elias was beside her. She could not yet see the future clearly. But she sensed that something large was approaching, something that would test both their empires and the fragile peace between them, and she knew that this time she would not face it alone. The border system remained quiet for days. Almost eerily so. Queen Sarilith and Elias Ward returned from their inspection with no visible signs of danger, yet both could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on the empire. Something was coming. The stars themselves seemed to hum with tension. And the Varethi could feel it in the vibrations of their ships, in the silent hum of distant communications, in the subtle behavior of their citizens. The unknown threat lingered at the edge of perception, and that was worse than any open attack. Sarilith spent hours in her private chambers, reviewing sensor readings, fleet positions, and logistical reports. She could not rest, could not relax. Elias sat nearby, studying the same data, but with a different focus. Where the Queen was meticulous and methodical, Elias searched for patterns, angles, and hidden truths. His eyes moved across star maps as if he could see the invisible lines connecting events, predict moves before they happened, and understand threats in ways that no Varethi algorithm could. "You notice it too?" Sarilith asked quietly. She pointed at a cluster of border colonies that had remained untouched. Elias nodded. "The pattern is deliberate. The silence, the absence of activity, it's meant to mislead us. Whoever is behind this wants us to feel safe, even for a moment." She frowned. "And if we fall into that comfort, we will be unprepared." "Exactly," he replied. His voice was calm, but the words carried weight. Humans have a saying, "The calm before the storm is when most people make mistakes." The Queen studied him, feeling the depth of his insight. She had expected a capable diplomat, someone who could negotiate and maintain appearances. Instead, she had found a strategist, a thinker, and a presence that seemed to anticipate danger before it arrived. And she realized, with a mixture of pride and unease, that humans were far more capable than the Varethi often allowed themselves to believe. Over the following days, the human fleets arrived at the Joint Border Command, coordinating quietly with Varethi ships. Elias took an active role, not as a commander but as an advisor. He analyzed movement patterns, studied communication logs, and proposed subtle changes in patrol routes that seemed minor at first but created significant advantages. The Varethi generals observed with quiet disbelief as their calculations, honed over decades, were refined by a human mind in ways they could not have anticipated. One evening, while the Queen and Elias reviewed a recent simulation, the calm of the command chamber was shattered by a sudden alert. Sensor readings indicated a fleet movement in the unmonitored outer sectors, approaching a vital communication hub. It was faster than anything previously recorded, silent, and precise. The Queen's heart skipped a beat. She looked at Elias, whose expression remained calm, almost serene. "They have begun," he said quietly. Sarilith nodded. "Then we act immediately." Elias analyzed the incoming trajectory. "We cannot intercept them directly. They are too fast and will avoid standard defenses. But we can predict their route. If we position a smaller, more agile fleet at key points, We can delay them long enough to protect critical installations. The Queen hesitated. She knew this would be risky. Are you certain? She asked. I am, he replied. Humans rely on adaptability and improvisation. Varethi methods are precise, but rigid. Combining our strengths will give us an advantage. Orders were sent. Varethi and human ships repositioned with remarkable efficiency. Queen Sarilith coordinated the strategy personally, giving Elias the authority to make adjustments as he saw fit. The Varethi Council protested, but she remained firm. The situation was unprecedented, and she trusted Elias's judgment. The first signs of the approaching fleet appeared on sensors hours later. The ships moved like shadows, avoiding detection and navigating through less monitored routes. Varethi ships attempted to engage, but the new positions Elias suggested allowed them to delay the intruders without falling into traps. Small, calculated skirmishes occurred, but no large-scale conflict erupted. Every movement was precise, almost elegant, and Sarilith could not help but feel awe at the human's foresight. Watching from the command center, she saw how Elias remained composed. His hands moved across holographic displays, issuing commands, adjusting fleet positions, predicting the enemy's next moves. Every decision was measured, every action deliberate. The Queen had never witnessed such fluid control in the face of uncertainty. It was as if he had anticipated not only the fleet's movements, but the very reactions of her people. By the second day, the intruders had been slowed significantly. Communication hubs remained operational. Colonies were protected, and Varethi and human forces remained coordinated. The Queen walked among the crews, observing the tension in their eyes. Soldiers whispered about the human advisor who seemed to know the right move before anyone else. Some muttered that he moved with the instinct of a warrior, the mind of a general, and the patience of a scholar all at once. Sarilith noticed it too. Elias had become more than a symbol of peace. He had become a source of confidence. Where her generals saw risk, he saw opportunity. Where her advisors panicked, he remained steady. The Queen realized that humans had an innate ability to adapt in situations that no algorithm could predict. It was not brute strength, nor was it sheer intelligence. It was a combination of instinct, creativity, and courage. One night, after the fleet had temporarily withdrawn to repair minor damages, the Queen found Elias alone in the observation chamber. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and the distant movements of ships cast faint glows across the room. You did not have to come here, she said softly. You could have stayed on your own command vessel. He shook his head. Peace cannot rely on distance. I need to see, to understand, to guide if necessary. She studied him, noticing the slight fatigue in his posture, the quiet intensity in his gaze. And yet you remain calm. You do not panic. I have seen humans face worse, he replied. We survive. We adapt. Sometimes we win by planning, sometimes by improvising, but we never give up. Sarilith felt a shiver run through her, not from fear, but from admiration. She had thought herself strong, capable, and unshakable, yet Elias possessed a quiet strength that surpassed the training and heritage of any Varethi she had known. It was not physical alone, it was determination, ingenuity, and an unyielding will. The next day, the intruders made a bold move, approaching a critical sector where both Varethi and human communication networks converged. The fleet had to act quickly. Traditional protocols suggested retreat, but Elias had already planned a different strategy. Using a combination of smaller, agile ships and holographic decoys, the fleet created the illusion of vulnerability, baiting the intruders into a controlled path. Every action was calculated to protect assets while minimizing risk. Sarilith watched from the command center as the plan unfolded. Ships moved like dancers, responding to commands faster than any standard Varethi procedure could allow. The intruders, precise as they were, fell into the designed path. For the first time, the Queen realized that humans had a unique advantage. They could think beyond rigid patterns, improvise within chaos, and act decisively when rules failed. By evening, the sector was secure. Damage was minimal, and critical systems remained intact. The Queen addressed the crew, praising their skill and courage, but she reserved her private acknowledgement for Elias. He had not only guided the strategy but inspired confidence among both species, proving that humans were more than allies, they were leaders in their own right. During the quiet hours that followed, Serelith and Elias walked together along the observation deck. The galaxy stretched before them, stars shimmering with possibilities. She finally spoke, her voice soft but filled with curiosity. "I did not expect this. Your presence. Your skill. I thought I was marrying a diplomat. Instead, I find myself standing beside a strategist, a protector, and a mind that sees far beyond my own." Elias looked at her, a faint smile crossing his face. "Your Majesty, humans are often underestimated. We appear ordinary, yet we carry potential that surprises even those who think they understand us. I do not seek to impress, only to act when necessary." Serelith nodded, feeling a mix of awe and respect. She realized that the galaxy was larger, more complex, and more dangerous than she had imagined. But with Elias by her side, she sensed they could face uncertainty together, blending human creativity with Varithi tradition in ways that could secure peace for both empires. The following weeks were tense. Sensor readings continued to monitor the outer sectors, but the intruders did not return immediately. Fleet positions remained active, patrols frequent, and communication constant. The Queen observed Elias as he worked tirelessly, never overexerting, never panicking, but always thinking, always planning. It became clear to her that humans did not just survive, they thrived under pressure, adapting and responding in ways that exceeded expectation. One afternoon, as they reviewed data from several distant systems, Elias leaned forward, pointing at an irregular signal. "This is interesting," he said. "It is not aggressive, but it is deliberate. Whoever is behind this wants to test our reactions. They are learning our methods, our patience, and our coordination." Serelith felt a thrill of concern. The calm they had maintained was fragile, and the unknown force remained patient, intelligent, and adaptive. Yet she also felt confidence, with Elias interpreting the signs, guiding the fleet, and advising her. They had a chance not just to survive, but to demonstrate that humans and Varithi together were more capable than any silent threat. That evening, she stood at the balcony overlooking the capital, thinking about the coming challenges. Elias joined her quietly. The stars stretched endlessly, unbroken by movement or sound. She realized that the galaxy would always be uncertain, always full of threats that were unseen or misunderstood. But she also realized that the presence of someone like Elias made her believe in victory, in strategy, in hope. She looked at him, feeling the weight of admiration and respect deepen. He was no longer just a husband or diplomat. He was a force of calm determination, a mind capable of guiding both empires, and a symbol that humans, though underestimated, could rise above expectation in ways that no one had predicted. And the Queen knew that the true test of their strength was approaching. Whatever the future held, she would face it not as a solitary ruler, but with a human beside her who could think, act, and inspire beyond the ordinary. The stars above seemed to shimmer in acknowledgement, as if the galaxy itself recognized that a new chapter had begun. A chapter where humans were not merely allies, but vital forces in shaping the fate of entire civilizations. The quiet before the final confrontation stretched for days. But Queen Serelith and Elias Ward both knew that the silence was only temporary. The Axiarch horde or whatever force had been testing their patience was gathering, calculating, and preparing to strike. Every moment of calm was a moment to prepare, a chance to think, and a chance to ensure that when the challenge came, they would meet it together. The Queen spent her mornings in strategy briefings, her afternoons reviewing fleet positions, and her nights walking among the soldiers. Every corner of the capital felt charged with anticipation. The Varithi troops, trained for centuries in discipline and precision, watched Elias with growing respect. They had seen him adapt to the heavier gravity, analyze complex simulations faster than any algorithm, and guide fleets with a combination of intuition and creativity that the Varithi themselves had never witnessed. Slowly, the perception of humanity shifted. No longer was Elias just a diplomat. He had become a figure of trust, a source of confidence, and a living example of what humans could achieve. Elias, in turn, observed everything. He studied the behavior of Varithi commanders, the speed of communication, and the strengths and weaknesses of the combined fleets. Unlike most humans, who would rely on sheer force or aggressive tactics, Elias sought precision, timing, and creativity. He knew that the key was not to overpower the enemy, but to anticipate them, to adapt, and to inspire both empires to act as one. Finally, the day arrived when the anomaly in the outer sectors manifested as a fleet, a massive, silent armada, unlike any they had encountered before. Its movements were deliberate, calculated, and unnervingly precise. The intruders did not attack immediately. They approached in formation, as if studying the defenses, analyzing the responses, testing both human and Varithi patience. Queen Seralith stood on the bridge of the command ship, overlooking the fleet. Elias was at her side, monitoring every movement, every calculation, every subtle shift in trajectory. The Varithi generals were tense, relying on centuries of training, while the human officers waited for guidance. Elias spoke calmly, almost quietly, yet every word carried authority. They are probing. They are not yet committed. We have the opportunity to guide the engagement. Our advantage lies in adaptation, not force. The Queen nodded. Then we will act together. I will follow your lead, as will our fleets. The plan Elias proposed was unconventional. Instead of meeting the intruders head-on, they would use a combination of feints, maneuvering, and agile fleet units to control the battlefield. The Varithi were skeptical. Such tactics defied centuries of military doctrine. But Seralith's presence and her trust in Elias encouraged them to act without hesitation. The fleets moved, flowing through the void like water, positioning themselves to maximize advantage while minimizing exposure. The first engagement began subtly. Small skirmishes erupted as intruder units tried to probe the defenses. Each time, Elias anticipated their movements, repositioning Varithi and human ships to intercept without direct confrontation. It was a dance of calculation, a test of patience, and a display of ingenuity that left even the most experienced Varithi officers astonished. From the bridge, the Queen observed how her new husband worked. His eyes moved across multiple screens at once, calculating trajectory, probability, and timing. His hand gestures were minimal, but each command had immediate impact. Unlike traditional commanders, who relied on rigid protocols, Elias adapted in real time, improvising solutions to problems before they could escalate. The Queen realized that humans did not simply react, they evolved under pressure, using creativity as a weapon. Hours passed, and the intruders tested every weakness they could find. They were methodical, relentless, and precise. Yet Elias anticipated each move, guiding the fleet with calm certainty. The Varithi generals began to recognize a new form of strength, the combination of human intuition with Varithi experience. It was unlike anything they had encountered. Where their own systems failed, Elias found opportunity. Where their predictions fell short, he saw patterns. Finally, the intruders made a bold move. A cluster of their ships approached the central communications hub, a critical point for both empires. Traditional tactics would have called for a full-scale defensive strike, risking massive losses. Elias, however, proposed a different approach. Using holographic decoys, agile interceptors, and precise timing, they created the illusion of vulnerability, luring the intruders into a controlled path that protected the hub while keeping losses minimal. The maneuver was risky, but the execution was flawless. As the intruders moved into the trap, small human and Varithi units coordinated perfectly, each action complementing the other. The Queen watched in awe as the strategy unfolded, realizing that the outcome was not determined by raw power, but by intellect, creativity, and trust. When the engagement ended, the intruder fleet withdrew. No ships had been destroyed, no colonies harmed, and the threat had been delayed. The combined fleets had proven their capability, and the Queen felt a profound sense of accomplishment not because she had won a battle, but because she had witnessed humanity's ingenuity and courage in action. In the quiet that followed, the Queen turned to Elias. "You did what I never thought possible," she said softly. "You guided fleets, inspired confidence, and protected our people without a single act of reckless aggression." Elias smiled faintly. "That is how humans often approach challenges, Your Majesty. We adapt. We learn. We survive. Strength is not only measured in force, but in creativity and foresight." Seralith felt admiration, respect, and an unfamiliar warmth. She had married Elias for peace, expecting a symbol, a representative of human diplomacy. Instead, she had found a partner who embodied courage, wisdom, and ingenuity. The embodiment of human potential. Over the next weeks, the Queen and Elias worked tirelessly to reinforce defenses, improve communication, and coordinate fleets. The Axiarch, Horde, or whatever force had been testing them, remained at the edges, probing and retreating, never fully committing. Each time, the combined human and Varithi forces responded with precision, creativity, and unity. Guided by Elias's insight, the Varithi people, once skeptical of humanity, began to see humans differently. They observed how a human mind could anticipate, improvise, and inspire in ways that no single Varithi system could achieve. Rumors spread among soldiers and civilians alike of the human who moved with the confidence of a warrior, the intelligence of a scholar, and the patience of a strategist. Respect turned to admiration, and admiration into trust. One evening, as the galaxy seemed quiet for the first time in weeks, the Queen and Elias walked along the observation deck, looking out over the stars. The calm felt fragile, yet powerful. They had survived the first wave of tests. They had protected their people without needless destruction. And they had demonstrated that unity between species could achieve what no single empire could. "You have changed the way I see humans," Seralith said quietly. "I thought we needed treaties and rules to guide peace. Now I see that strength can come from courage, creativity, and adaptability." Elias looked at her with steady eyes. "Humans are capable of much more than we are given credit for. But we are not alone in this galaxy. We adapt better when we trust and cooperate. That is why this alliance works." Seralith nodded. "And I trust you. Not because of your rank or position, but because of who you are." The human smiled faintly, a small, quiet acknowledgement of her words. They stood together, watching the stars, each aware that their unity had not only preserved peace, but demonstrated the potential of human ingenuity to the galaxy. In the days that followed, minor skirmishes occurred, but the main threat never fully returned. The Axiarch Horde, or the mysterious force testing them, seemed to recognize the effectiveness of the combined fleets and retreated, at least for now. It was not victory in the traditional sense. No battles were won, no fleets destroyed. But the outcome was profound. The human and Varithi alliance had endured, adapted, and proven its strength. The Queen reflected on what she had witnessed. She had married a human for peace, expecting diplomacy and ceremony. Instead, she had gained a partner, a strategist, a protector, and a symbol of hope. Humans, underestimated and often dismissed, had shown that intelligence, adaptability, and courage could change the course of entire civilizations. Elias continued his work, guiding fleets, advising leaders, and inspiring soldiers. But beyond his actions, he had shown something greater: the human capacity to rise above expectation, to face uncertainty with creativity, and to achieve the extraordinary when others hesitated. One quiet night, the Queen and Elias stood together on the balcony, the galaxy stretching endlessly before them. She realized that the true power of their union was not the political treaty or the marriage itself, it was the combination of human ingenuity and Varithi tradition, a partnership that could shape the future in ways no single empire could. "You have shown me something remarkable," she said softly. "And you have shown me trust, Your Majesty," he replied. "Together, we are stronger than either of us alone." The stars above shimmered as if in agreement. The galaxy was vast, uncertain, and full of challenges. But the Queen no longer feared the unknown. She had seen humanity rise to meet it, and she had witnessed the strength that came from courage, creativity, and unity. The story of Elias Ward and Queen Seralith became legend not because of battles won or enemies destroyed, but because it demonstrated the extraordinary potential of humans and the power of cooperation between species. Peace was not simply a treaty or a symbol. It was the result of intelligence, adaptation, and unwavering courage. And the Queen knew, as she looked at her husband beside her, that humanity would continue to rise in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Together, they would face whatever challenges the stars brought next, and the universe would take notice.